Yes. And I'll leave this door open if someone joins us. Okie dokie. So tonight we're gonna be talking about acceptance. Acceptance. But note, we
Shared screen.
oh, I'm sharing screen. Am I?
No,
Right?
No. No, you're not.
I think I did.
No, you just record. It's not flashing. Love to smile.
No, you are not.
Sorry.
Window.
Uh, now I am. All right.
Now you are.
See? Problem solved. I accept and I did what I could to change. So we're gonna be a lot of this tonight. So just like a side note, we are going to talk about acceptance tonight that usually refer to cases where we have experienced situations or a condition that we most of the times are uncomfortable or feel sad about it or feel pain and we can change, and also on that same sense as the first slide is showing here is like when for example as well someone is going through like a health problem without a solution that like terminal ills and things like that. So we are going to talk about that side of accept things we cannot change and what we can do to make that pain easy. Okay, we're not going to talk about or focus on the things that we could possibly change, and just like say, yeah, you have to accept it is what it is. It's not what we're going to be talking about tonight. For example, if you talk like the Indians, they have kind of philosophy, I would say religion, when you have your social status, that if you're born on that, I think in English is caste as well. Caste as well. Like if you're born poor or under that social status, you have to accept that and live as it is, So unfortunately or fortunately that unfortunately is how they live, but thank God it's kind of changed. There is start to have some little revolutions here and there for people saying you could not accept that as it is. If you're born poor and you have opportunity to study, to improve yourself, why not? So those are different things, with things that, for example, I just said, like if you're born on a social status and you can improve, you should not accept as it is. You should not accept, as people usually say, is like it's a karma. You have to pay for your debts. You have to suffer. No, if you have reasons and means and tools to do, please. If you could study, you could reach for help. So that's a different situation. All right. So we're not going to be talking about those kinds of things that you could do something about it. Maybe you're not going to change anything, but like, for example, if you, let's just use the example of your social status. If you're really poor, like money wise, and even though you try your best, you die as a poor person, doesn't mean like was for nothing. You improve, you got experience. There is a lot of things you could and will achieve through the trials and efforts to overcome those challenges. All right, so just make clear, we're not going to talk about those things. We're going to talk about these things as the first slide is suggesting for us about things we cannot change. For instance, someone die, we cannot change. That person is not going to reborn like on the same body. As we believe in reincarnation, of course we believe we're gonna find that person again on the spiritual world, or that person will reincarnate. If we are fortunate, we're gonna be on the same family, on the same social social place, environment, but it's on that sense, like we're here right now. If we lose someone that we love, there is no way around that. We have to accept that. And before we accept that, there's a lot of things we go through as well. So it's about that kind of acceptance we're going to be talking tonight, okay? About things we cannot change and what we could do to accept to make that better, to make that burden a bit easier, to breathe on acceptance of things we cannot change. Okie dokie? Okay. Someone raised a hand or was me? Someone want to join. Angela. So welcome, Angela. We just started. We didn't miss much, just about the topic that we are talking, that is acceptance. So acceptance. Notions of acceptance are prominent in many faiths, as I'm already suggest about the Indian faith, how they accept their social status. In Buddhism, one of the truth of Buddhism, as the example that the text brought to us, that life is suffering, and invite people to accept that suffering as a natural part of life. The word suffering brings a very heaviness to the topic. As we always talk here in PESC, we're going to try to change that wording for, some challenges. And sometimes those challenges that life throws at us cause suffering for us. Like, not everything is roses and birds and songs and, it's not. Pizzas, as Alex is saying. Sometimes we have to face challenges that it will hurt, challenge that's gonna take like some strength to keep living, challenge that's gonna take a toll on you, on your family, on your work environment. Who knows, like name it. There is heaps of examples what we could, throw in here, but it's part of life. As there is this way in English that it is what it is. So what we can do to accept that. Né? And then some more examples that they give to us here on this text is about Kabbalah. That means like accept, to trust in God. I did some research in Kabbalah that is about to understand God, to be in God, and like how to make part and accept what, God gives you. And also another part of acceptance, as I just gave you guys the example, like, for example, the things that we cannot change, like if we lose someone that we love, that, pass, that is like acceptance is one of the parts when we are grieving. So it's one of the stages of dying. So as I put on my notes on the beginning of this night, that many believe that acceptance means that we give up. It is what it is. There is nothing I can do and be passive. But it's not. So this, I think, was a pretty good example that the text just brought to our view, that acceptance is letting go of the struggle mentally around something. It's like you accept you cannot change that it is, but how are you going to approach that problem, that challenge, that you can change. You may not change that you lose someone that you love, but you can change how you feel about it, how you approach that situation in your life, And one of the examples, it's about judo, that is actually a sport that is born in Brazil, like originally from Brazil, that teach that if someone pulls you towards them, you should move in and use that force to counterattack, to use that moment to provide, like, to overpower them, to accept like your challenge, not like be resistant, like accept what it is, go like to encounter that and use that to overpower. On that sense, if we try to put that towards the things in our life, is like if there's something coming your way, go with the flow, like take what you can from that and then change the things that is within your control. All right. So as the text just put on the below, that acceptance involves going with the flow, using the energy on that situation, regardless how, it is, and take that on your healing process. All good through here? Any questions? No? Cool. Sorry, dog wants to participate. Another example that the text brought to our attention, it's about the oak tree and the reeds. So it's about if there was a big storm and the oak tree just unfortunately fall. And then the oak tree look at the reeds and ask like, you know, I wonder how you, that is so light and weak, are not entirely crushed by the strong winds with that storm that just happened. And they replied, the oak tree to the oak tree, you find and content with the wind, and consequently you are destroyed. While we, on the contrary, bend before the least breath of air, and therefore remain unbroken and escape. So it's about sometimes when we have situations that we cannot change, we are so stubborn that we keep there and we don't not accept those challenges. On this case of this example, the storm that comes, the strong wind, so you bend to that power of nature because there is no way for you to change a big storm. It's outside of our power. So we have to take the example of the reeds and bend ourselves to the will of the winds. We should not make ourselves stubborn and strong and keep our feet as it is because it is what it is. No, we bend to that will of that big power than ourselves, and then we will come up stronger. We will survive that big storm. Keeping the example, if we lose someone, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. So we lose someone, we have to accept there is no change to that. Thank God we have Spiritism that console us, that we believe that person is just like, in another stage of his living, like on the spiritual world, as pretend is like another city that we will visit at some point, and we will meet again. But it's hard. It doesn't mean like if we lose someone that we love, it's not gonna hurt, that we're not gonna grieve, that we're not gonna cry, that we even gonna ask why and challenge God's will. It's part of being a human being and feel. So we have feelings, and to go through this stage of understanding, those emotions are pretty natural. It's part and help you to build your spirit, have you to build your strength to keep going. So of course, we always say, like, if you lose someone, try to not be desperate or things like that. But it is part of life. And some people is the only way sometimes they have how to cope with that situation. But as I said, with Spiritism, we have the opportunity, this comfort that is just a passage. But, we're still going to be grieving. We're still going to be mourning that person that we miss. We're going to miss the contact. We're going to miss to look someone every day and touch them and kiss them and hug them, to make a phone call. We're going to miss those moments, and we need to cherish those moments as well because they are part of our memory. Yes, Colleen?
Yes, the word mourn is interesting in the Aramaic. The important emphasis is not on the grief so much as the essence of longing for deeper meaning. This is the translation from the Aramaic, because Aramaic, as we discussed last week, is not so definite on one or two definitions. It's very loose and very inclusive. But yes, the importance here is to see that mourn is not to be, in a sense, lost or bereft, but to be seeking not just consolation, because this is how the cards are written, aren't they? We sit in consolation with you. We commiserate with you. But in Aramaic, yes, mourn is to seek greater depth or understanding for why something is as it is. So this is an important takeaway from the Beatitude itself. If we see it as blessed are those who sit in that place, who are not satisfied with how things are, but looking for greater depth of understanding. And this is how the gift of yes, pain, the gift of pain leads us to this place of seeking, seeking, and thereby gaining a greater depth or understanding for life itself. Yes. I don't know if I explained that very well.
No, you did. You always did. You always do. Sorry.
I understood more as well as I'm not sure if it's the same, but or if it is what we are contesting, but I understood mourning is for resignation and acceptance. Is that right?
There is a sense of that, but
Mhm.
also the acceptance of what is, but with a great with being open to finding consolation. What is it that leads us to that place where we want answers? We want to find reasons for. We want not to be lost in it, but to be open for answers. Not finding answers in our intellect, but finding answers, within the grace of God.
Yeah, it's like waiting for the answer to what I am learning from.
Yes.
Okay.
But also to be seeking that in the depths of sorrow. Yes. So
Thank
it is quite uplifting. Yes.
you. So, on that same sense that we just say, Martin Luther King, there is a famous phrase from him that the ultimate measure of a man is not when he stands on moments of comfort, when everything is good, is when you stand in times of challenge and controversy. So it's when, like, one of his phrases, like how you really a real man, or like on that sense, a human being, how you stands on moments of challenge and controversy. Like on this specific phrase, he was referring to your moral compass, when like things are bad, or like how you should, someone try to bribe you, is more under the sense of moral compass on the society. But like we could bring that to spiritism as well. Like as a being, how you stand on moments when challenges are presented to you. You're gonna how you gonna we just talk about how that's gonna bring you take you out of that situation, how you're gonna learn from that, how you can see things on a different way, how can you use your creativity, as we always discuss here, to seek different perspectives, and not just sitting there and accept things for what they are. Of course, just using the same example, if we lose someone, there is no change on that. But the way that I approach that challenge, like how we're going to run our family, what decisions need to be made, what change needs to be made for that family to, keep running. So is on that sense that those moments of controversy and challenge that we need to stand up. That doesn't mean, again, we're not going to suffer, that the pain is not there, but those moments challenge us to improve, to grow as human beings. So on that sense, acceptance in adversity. So bring up a little bit more to the technical aspect of spiritism. We are going towards regenerate 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 world, and everything involves progress. And pain is one part of that progress. Pain is part, like it's part of the world that we are living. But one day it won't, those perfect worlds that we read on those books exist, and then pain is not part of their, every day. There is no need for them to suffering anymore. There is no need for them to learn from those moments, because they've been through, they learn, and now they're living on those perfect worlds with, without pain. But unfortunately, pain, as Colleen already said to us, it's part. And like, it's about how we see that pain and evolve that will count. There is things we cannot change, but how you perceive, how you approach that challenge, that you can have control and change. So suffering is still part of our world. In all conditions, at all times, in all climates, humans have gone through ordeals. The rich person as well as the poor suffers both in flesh and in spirit. And as we just said, it's part of our learning. So it is how we approach, how we perceive to change those things that are under our control, that will help us grow as human beings. And that little challenge can start on your family, on your work environment, and then can grow like on society if you have the power to change things, in a big scale. So all those little decisions that we do, and with the challenge and the adversity that life throws at us, is how we gonna approach that. So just keep that in mind. We already talked about these, about those spiritual worlds, that suffering is not part of that anymore. That's main goal, hooray! But we're still in a journey. So those challenges is still part of what we live and what we learn through. Even like a very silly example. I remember in school, English, believe it or not, was a really kind of adversity for me. I could not understand English. Don't tell this to your kids, but I cheat on many exams because I could not concept how to speak in English, how to understand the verb. So, everything that involved English. And was really painful for me to learn. But was something, that I could not change. So I have to take that on board and, do what I could to pass, And now look at me, live in a country where I have to speak English most of my time, like work. At home, we speak Portuguese, like I'm a little bit of mix in that. But, it's how you approach that problem. But like on that sense, I could not understand English. But then I thought like, okay, I cannot learn this because I cannot grasp the concept of English. But I need to speak a second language because it's really important. I always dream about be a public relations. So I say, if I wanted to, have a successful career, I need to speak at least 2 language. So I used to love to watch those soap operas in Spanish from Mexico. Like it's pretty much the Mexican version of the doramas, that the Korean, soap operas that is pretty famous today. That is very trash, but I used to love them. I still love them. So I decided to speak Spanish. So I studied Spanish for 4 years. So I took that at university, proud of myself, and, change the things that I could. I could not learn English. I just accept back then that, okay, that's not going to be part of my life. I need to do something else, and I'm going to learn something else. So I went to Spanish. But, life throws you curveballs, and here I am. But it's just a silly example that, it was very painful for me back at school, like back in school. But now it's just like, yeah, I'm speaking English. I learned, and here I am. So back then was painful, but today is a different situation for me. So it's just a silly example, but just come to my mind about that. Sometimes you have to accept, change things that you could, and then maybe in the future, you're gonna have good surprise, as I did. This is not already talk about that. So again, we already talk about creativity, how like we always use that word here in PESC about, the opportunities, like we don't usually try not to keep those heavy words about challenges and, painful situations. We try to use like those things that happen, usually the, God blessings that give you moments to use and to use your creativity. So adversity has this effect of eliciting talents which is proper circumstances would have lain dormant. So is this, I thought that was pretty funny about this story of a chicken farmer whose land always keep flooding and killing the chickens all the time. Every flood, maybe it was Brisbane, who knows? The big flood, the chickens died. And in despair, he told his life, I had enough. I don't want any more. But like, I cannot afford to buy another place. I can't sell this one because it's the only place we have to live. So what can we do? And then, wise women, because we are wise men, buy ducks. Okay. There is no way for you to change your environment, but maybe you can change the way you approach the problem. Ducks swim, chicken don't. Easy done. So you take what you accept what you cannot change, and then use your creativity to, play the dice and see what you can do, things that are under your control.
And be sensible about that. Buy ducks, not
Yeah.
fish.
Well, the fish are gonna be swimming away once the flood is gone. Then they're gonna die because the land's gonna be dry. But again, it's just a silly example, It's about sometimes we get so desperate about, for example, the silly story about the chicken farmer. The land always gonna flood with big floods and big rains. The chicken's always gonna die because they cannot swim. So you cannot move, you cannot sell. What are we gonna do? Well, how about raise ducks? So then you're gonna be safe. It's a very silly story, but brings us like sometimes we just need one simple solution to have another view of that challenge, of that problem, that we cannot change, but we have the control how to react to them.
Think outside of the box or outside of the flooding zone.
Yes, pretty much. This part here just brings back to the Spiritism kind of view of suffering and adversities in our lives. That the adversities that we encounter are results of our misdemeanors. I never know how to say misdemeanors. Remember when I say English was a big challenge for me back to school? It's still a challenge for me. But at least I can talk in English now. So it's more than a sense, like, because sometimes if you read just as it is, seems like God is someone that just punish you about your mistakes and you have now is paying for your mistakes on this life. And we always talk about this and we always try to bring this approach. It's not about pain. It's about just, you just action and consequences. Like if you choose to plant apples, you're gonna reap apples, and so move on. So it's always that approach about we make choices in our lives and that's gonna have consequences. Doesn't mean we cannot change them. If you don't like how life is treating you back with your choices, it's always the opportunity to you to reflect on them, to change, to improve, and so on. And that's the beauty of the law of progress that God presented us. It's just the consequence. So if we eat bad, we're gonna have cholesterol, we're gonna probably be overweight. But if we will eat healthy and practice exercise, most likely you're gonna have a health life and so on. So it's just life is about choices, and then we're gonna have the consequences. Not necessarily, pay your debts in a sense like I have to pay and accept what it is. No, if you can change, yes, please do so. But if it's something you cannot change, it is what it is. So how are you gonna approach that problem? How are you gonna think outside of the box? What you can do to control that environment? You can control how you react. You can control how you speak. If it's someone that brings that challenge for you, how you can control how you react towards that person, and so on. So maybe we cannot change the situations, but we can change how we react and how we approach that situation. So here is another example of embrace adversity, that not all adversity is bad. Like, as we've been talking this night, adversity is like opportunities that life gives us to improve. And this is how the Suez Canal was, developed, that the engineer that thought about it, that canal, was on a boat, and then because of a contagious disease, that boat was in quarantine, so they have to stay in the boat for a few days or weeks. Was not as specific. And then just to kill some time, that guy, Mary Lepere, I think how to say his Ferdinand Mary Lepers, he was reading the books of Jacques Mary Lepere, the person who thought that would be possible to build that canal. So Ferdinand was reading that book because there was nothing better for him to do at that boat. And then 37 years later, that canal was built. So at that moment, that was an adversity for Ferdinand. He was upset because he was losing time. He had to work, he had many things to do, and he was stuck inside of a boat. So he just decided to read a book because why not? And that was the seed for something bigger. So we always gonna get good things from the adversities. I'm not saying everyone here is gonna be the canal, but we always gonna get something good. Maybe today you're thinking about it, you're missing something. We always have that say, we are where you should be. There is no wrong place. Like if we are here, it was meant to be. So those cases, for example, of people that was meant to be on an airplane, and then because we have a crash and was a crash and that person survived, no, because they're holding traffic, so they missed the flight. That was an adversity. That person was really upset to get into the airport and miss the flight, and unfortunately there was a crash. It's very broad example, but those are kinds of adversity in life. Adversities happens all the time. And again, it's how we approach. If you're, stuck in traffic and was meant to get to an airplane and couldn't make it, I know we're going to be upset, maybe we swear here and there, maybe we try to speed it up, but like, is that how you're going to approach that? Or maybe is that life invite us to breathe in? I try to think that all the time because I've been told, and I know I should breathe more, sometimes slow down. And I'm trying, and sometimes it's pretty hard to know how to approach those adversities in life, but sometimes, okay, step back, breathing. This is the situation. What should I do now? Scream or think, breathe and think. Let it be and letting God, as we always say. Okay, so that is just an example of things. Sometimes you have something that you think is really bad and you're wasting your time, but it's not. It's just a little seed that there in the future, you're going to get great things coming from. Oh, good through here? I already spoke about that, about tranquility, how we're going to, approach those moments of adversity. Breathe. First thing, breathe. It's not easy, trust me. Sometimes I miss that step. But yes, breathe, because we should remain tranquil and not be disturbed by occurrences that are common and unavoidable. If it is what it is, there is no way for us to change. breathe. Then you can have those seconds for your brain to start to process that situation and see how you could approach that problem. That is one of the Benjamin Franklin advices for us. So this is a more psychological side of it, of the acceptance, you know. Um, so I'm just gonna walk through them a bit quickly. So on our normal existence, like we have something and we have valid emotions and doubts and things that cloud our judgment, and that is normal. We already speak about them. And they're part of who we are, and they are emotions, and they are part of who we are, and they are really strong things that help us to, grow. But on this instance, on the cycle of acceptance, we usually receive that bad news, things that we cannot change. There is nothing we could do to change that situation. And then we're like, okay, now this is bad news. Usually it's pretty much, it's similar to the state of grief, and the same is the cycle of acceptance. Many times we go to the denial. I say, nope, can be true, not accept that, nope, 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 nope. The fourth stage of acceptance, I'm not saying you go through all of them, usually if we try to breathe and have those concepts, we can skip some of them, but they're just natural, steps and natural cycles that we go through on this, acceptance journey, So if you've been through one of them, if you're going through one of them, it's totally normal. But you're going to have a good, we have an end, we have a light on the end of the tunnel, okay? So the denial. After the denial, we usually get angry about it, we shout, we break things, we call people names. After that anger, we could have depression, when we get on that stage of nothing that I do will change that. I'm not good enough. I should have done this. I should have done that. And that could lead to depression. And again, doesn't mean like your acceptance cycle, it's going to, tick all those boxes. Like you can just pretty much just go through denial and bargain. Like, doesn't mean like you go through all the stages of it, but that's just the psychological view of this whole cycle of acceptance. And with the depression, you can, have your decisions clouded, and not make good decisions to approach that problem and think a bit with more clarity. After that, the same as in grieving, sometimes you try to bargain, God, I need this, help me this because of that. I should accept things and not going to change, and get on that stage. And until finally we can go through the acceptance. And then when we could possibly, and most likely, and we pray, we get the tranquility. So we are aware that we cannot change what happened, but we accept it and we approach that problem with a different view. So that's just like a little psychology, the psychology point of view of the cycle that some people go through all of them. Some people go through one or two, people that really have high skills just think about, okay, I cannot accept that. Let's go. What I can do to change it. That's like, woohoo, winning. But sometimes life throws you some challenge that is really hard for us to just think with clarity. So it's okay, don't kick yourself if you're going through denial. Don't kick yourself, your anger. Just remember and try to breathe, just remember and try to seek for help, seek for illumination, seek for advice from God, from our mentors. Take a moment to meditate on the situation. There's nothing you can do to change it, but there is someone up there or around us or inside us, depends of, how you want to approach that is here to help you. And that is God, just take a moment to meditate and ask guidance to approach how you could tackle that situation that life throws at you as a learning. subject, but it's still, sometimes is a big challenge for us to go through. So acceptance in adversity. Many times we wonder what is going to happen to us, and quite often we feel impotent and uneasy. So it's okay, you know. And the beauty of that is that I like the way that they put it here, that we are the artisans of our destiny, our destiny, like our future, it's open for us to build and to be creative and to change and to put colors and put like whatever we want. So whatever we are aiming in the future, we have to sow today. Again, choices and consequences, there is no way outside of that law. So we are able to realize that whatever is in our way today follows a determination that we will acquire for ourselves before the present incarnation, or maybe on the next one as well. So the way that we approach the problem, the decisions that we made today, is going to have consequences in the future. And that, is well known between us. So in adversity, how we're going to approach that? Breathing, going to all the cycles of the acceptance. So just think about it. How do you want to tackle that problem today? That's going to determine how that problem is going to present itself for you tomorrow. We need to have the courage, against adversities. We have to accept what comes in our way. And again, things that we cannot change, all right? Not all of the things we spoke in the beginning about, we have a way out. And meet with courage. I know it's hard. I know probably it's going to be painful. I know it's going to be, sometimes we don't find the support of many people to go through, but we have to have courage, and with the best that you have to give and to approach that problem. There is this say from Jesus, I even took here so I could remember and say it right. Because Jesus never promised a life without trials, but he did promise that he would be with us all the way. So that's something for us to remember, he always going to be with us. So it doesn't matter. I know maybe you're going through the worst time of your life. If you're listening to this, I don't know how many years in front. But Jesus never promised a life without the trials, but he promised to always be with us. So just keep that in mind when life throws you moments or things you cannot change, that you need to have the courage to accept and see how you're going to approach that. Because again, you only can control how you're going to react to that situation, if that is out of your control. But what is under your control is how you're going to react to it. So this is going to lead us to the self-acceptance, loving who you are, the decisions that you made, and embrace and go and move forward. Sorry. So allowing yourself to be loved by loving yourself. Again, as I said, sometimes we have to tackle problems that we don't have any support, but Jesus and God, are there, are here, in here, around you, up there, again, whatever way you want to interpret it that. So it's important for us to accept who we are and how we manage the things that are under our control. So that makes a powerful healing tool for ourselves. So we can accept the decisions that we made, that we did our best with what we could, with our knowledge. So that energy helps us to heal, because we cannot change that situation, but we can change how we accept and how we approach that situation. So that's a really powerful tool for healing. That I just talk about it. because healing does not have to be a struggle. We have to, yes.
Yes, yes. It is interesting, isn't it? The self-help flashcards or suggestions, the Louise Hay, for example, many of us are inspired by her work as well. But there is this encouragement to stand in front of the mirror each morning and say, I love you, and I am perfect, and I am beautiful, and I am this and I am that. There is a shortfall here because there is no explanation for why are you beautiful? Why am I beautiful? Why am I intelligent? Why am I extraordinary and strong? Why am I this? The self-help books miss the point because there is the missing link. And the key is the link. The key is that we are needing to acknowledge the divine within each of us, and that in the creation, we are perfect. And so when we look in the mirror, we see Jesus, or we see God looking back at us. When we look at another, and Jesus reminds us, the lowliest of those that we pass is Jesus himself. There I am in the lowliest of those that you see. There I am, Jesus says. He is there because he is a part of the creation. We ourselves are a part of the creation. We ourselves are a part of the divinity that is perfection manifest. In our diversity, there are no mistakes. So the self-help books stand us in front of the mirror and they get us to say, yes, I am perfect. Yes, I am beautiful. Yes, I am this and I am that. But why? Because we are a part of God. We are a part of the creation. And there we see the magnificence of creativity. And there we see a reason for why we don't criticize ourselves or we don't criticize another. Because therein lies God. Therein lies Jesus. Therein lies the mentors from time immemorial. Yes, we are perfection manifest. Each of us, even me. Yes, yes.
What we miss is the context.
Sorry?
What we occasionally, or most of the time, we miss is the full context.
Yes, yes,
Where we are in that context.
yes.
That's the things that we need to struggle, and then we miss that. We sometimes don't engage in that, that self acceptance and realization that we are a dot and a big masterpiece.
Yes, yes.
And if you are not there, that masterpiece is missing. It's
Yeah.
not perfect because
The-
you're
the-
not there.
The tapestry is incomplete. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then I always wake up in the morning and say, look at this, the mirror says, Jackson, you are beautiful. You are intelligent. You are a perfection and you are a bloody liar.
So yeah. So on that sense, we already went back and forwards about, things we cannot change, how we see that situation, how we react to that. That are the things that is under our control. Again, it's not usually easy, but we have to accept who we are because we are part of God. We are perfect creatures. But even though on those moments of struggle, we need to seek serenity. And the way to, if you need that little extra kick to keep going and to accept, is search and seek for God. And, that strong prayer and say, Father, give us courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what we cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. So that's a very powerful prayer, because we need to try to make that difference. We need to try to seek that wisdom to just do what the text that Paul, that was the person who wrote that, that serenity to accept we cannot accept, and it is what it is, but the insight to change the things that we can, or how we can approach. So in those moments that you don't know what to do, look to God and seek for guidance. So remember, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade, make a mousse, make an ice cream. I don't know, make whatever you like, A lemon doesn't need to be a lemon forever. They can change, they can progress. That's the beauty of the law, So as we are, like, me who I am today, speaking English, die from 30 years ago or so, at 10 years old, 12 years old at school, I could not grasp the concept that I will be living in a country and I will be able to speak in English, So life throw me some lemons, life happens and things change. So always have that say. It's a very simple one, very well known between everyone here. But that's the thing. You need to take whatever we have here, whatever is under our control, and change the things and make it even better with the tools that we have and that are under our control. So this is it for tonight. Any more comments? Anything that someone would like to share with us? Nope. Good.
I think those presentations has a little American tip. I was mentioning Americans big. So yes, mine, I will take this off and put Australian. I'll take all this off. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Well, but it's a very good material that is up there for everyone. So
Yes, it is.
So if it's something that after all we discussed tonight, if there is only one thing we should, meditate on, is about have that wisdom to know the difference of to accept and find peace and tranquility, the things that it's not that is out of our control and we cannot change, and have the wisdom and the serenity to approach that and change the things that it is under our control. So it's how we react. So that will help us to find that serenity, because sometimes suffering is a part of process, but it's not something that we need to suffer forever. Maybe it's painful today, but could be better tomorrow if we use that tool to accept and ask for guidance and change the things that just under our control. And the rest is the rest. Let it be and let it go. The birds they don't worry about the feed of tomorrow. They just trust on today's, and tomorrow belongs to God. So that's my intake from tonight, Even though I confess sometimes I overthink things, but it's part of the process. The important things that we always remember, we always come back to those lessons, and at some point, it's going to be just normal as breathing. And at some point, we don't need to suffer anymore. So it's part of this journey. So I saved one little meditation for us. How do I do that again? If it's something
Stop sharing.
I will stop the recording, sorry.
Yeah, and sharing as well.
I already did that.